All right, I'm gonna do a quick demonstration here of mounting a inflation valve, or this could also be a breathing tube valve if we cut this piece off and cut the little flap open on the bottom. So there's several different ways that you can do these things. You can mount them like that, and then in which case you might want to put a little donut ring that goes around the top to kind of reinforce it. Or you can cut a hole and mount it like this, or say if this is already an inflatable, you don't really have the luxury of getting to the inside to put it from the back, we can cut a hole and actually kind of slip it through. So any way we do this, we need a hole. So the first step is figure out where you want to put your hole and pinch the material and cut like that. And you want to make it no bigger than your hole that you want. In fact, you really kind of want to make it a little bit smaller. Now this is a pretty large jumbo size, or some people call it a number 2 valve. So that's probably about the size of my hole, maybe a little bit bigger. Now, what we want to do is go ahead and make another cut at 90 degrees, and then another one across from that. So now we've got kind of a T. And actually, if you want to, you could stop there and you could cut these off. Some people will do that. Some people will leave these. Now, if you decide you want to leave them, what you can do is you can kind of create some 45s like this. Basically, you're making little slices of a pie. Now that's okay if you're coming in from behind like this. You can actually leave them. You gotta kind of fish this through here. You can actually leave these little slices of pie. Which they will kind of end up looking like this, coming up the sides. Or you can cut them off. And in fact, if you mount the valve from the outside like this, or if you want to put this thing inside but you don't have access and you want to fish it through like this, I would probably go ahead and cut these things off. So we'll go ahead and do that. Just showing you there's a couple different ways you can do this. So here we just sort of play kind of connect the dots, if you will. So we're kind of making a circle out of this. It doesn't have to be perfect because it's going to get stretched, and you'll see what I mean here. Now, if you mount it like this, just as long as it's big enough for it to tuck in when you're not using it, and that should be about right. Or if we're going to fish this through from the outside, say this is the outside of an inflatable and we don't have inside access, we can kind of work it through like this and then kind of push it down a little bit and then back, and then sort of the unevenness kind of gets stretched around the perimeter like that. Now, I'll show you a couple different ways to do this. If you have access to the back, that's wonderful. You just come in here like this and you put some vinyl cement all along that ring. And then you come back here and then you push down. You probably just want to do a little section at a time because the glue will start to set up if you try to do too much. But you do want to kind of work with it for a minute or so to work out all the air bubbles. You can kind of push with your finger. You can maybe kind of get something up against it to roll. The pipe actually would probably work a little bit better. Can help you kind of roll the wrinkles and air bubbles out. Now, if you're working from the outside, if this is an inflatable and you don't have access to the inside, what you can do is kind of pull just enough to get a gap to get your needle down in here like this. Oops. And just inject, but be careful. You don't want to do too much. You don't want to go super close to the edge, because then you just end up with glue on the inside that you can't really see. And you can kind of push as you go, and you can see where the glue is because it'll stay stuck down. It'll stay wet. You want to be careful to notice any gaps, because you don't want a gap that'll end up just being a leak. You want to probably close this thing so it's out of the way. And you can see that I have done a pretty good job, I think. We can kind of push these things down and see if there's any gaps. And if we're happy, keep moving on until we've gone all the way around. We just want to make sure that there's no gaps in the glue. And of course, if you're working from the other side, it's very easy to look. If you have access to this side, you can very easily see where we've got gaps. You can just add a little bit if there's any missing. And then just continue to push down until you've worked out all the air bubbles. If you're working with thinner material, you might want to cut a donut to reinforce and go around this. Or if you mounted your valve on top like this and kind of put glue around here and stuck it down, then you're going to want to probably have a donut that goes on top of it. Or maybe you just want to pretty it up and make it look a little bit nicer. The best way to do it is you take one of these valves, maybe before you mount it, or if you have a spare valve, you could take it and take a marker or a grease pen or gel pen. This is a gel pen. And you're going to mark this. Now what you're going to do is you're actually not going to cut on that line. You're first going to cut the outer perimeter. So we want the outer perimeter to be probably at least 3/8 of an inch, maybe half an inch more. So we'll use this as a guide and try to keep about that distance away. Now, if you have a circle tool, this could be real handy because you could basically just put that down and draw it out. I've already made a cut, so I'll just continue to do this freehand. Now you could do it on the back side. and glue that down to reinforce it. Or you could put this over the top side. So either way, it's going to kind of thicken up the material. But that's one way that you can add some reinforcement to it. You would just glue it down and work out all the air bubbles and wrinkles, just kind of like we did a little while ago.